Welcome to another exciting episode of The Soup. My name is Jade Brown, and we are here today to discuss, continue our discussion on sexual harassment. Today we're going to take a deeper look at the controversial topic of sexual harassment, and we will discuss how adults can promote young people's healthy relationships and prevent misogyny and sexual harassment. But before we go on, and before I recap of last week's episode, I would like to introduce my beautiful co-host, Miss Allison Isbeth, and Miss Rochelle Gonzalez. Hi, ladies.
Hello.
All right.
And of course, we have to say that you're beautiful too.
Thank
Exactly.
you.
I mean, not exaggerating, eh?
Like, ooh.
Thank you so much. But just a quick recap of the last episode, which was our premiere episode of season 4. Of course, it was exciting. It was controversial, at times fiery. Ladies, what was your take on it?
Well, the men, those who were there, gave us some heat. But I think we were able to take on that heat, especially when you look at people like Harris and his points. I think they were very pertinent to what the whole topic was about. But for me, it was the comments, the feedback afterwards, where people were saying, well, for one thing, the men in the comments, they were not afraid to say what they felt. Right. But as the panel, or the people on the panel, we were able to be very daring. We did not shy away from what our comments were about. And I'm sure for our viewers, you had your own take on what it is we spoke about. So we look at men not even realizing that they're harassing you. We looked at the Saint Lucian way of harassing, but they think they're coming on and they're being spicy and they're complimenting you when we're actually telling them, you're not, you're making us feel uncomfortable. And we also looked at the social side of it, we looked at the professional side of it, how whether you're in a social setting or you're in a professional setting, the things that you see, like, you know, my breast look like a 44 BCG or whatever. I'm kidding here, people. I'm kidding. And you know, you look really fine in that, or that butt of yours, or I love the shape of that in your tights. You know, and all of those kinds of comments, how they're not fun, they're not sexy, and it makes us feel less than the human beings that we truly are. And so when we looked at all of those comments, I think it made for a fiery, vibrant conversation.
Yeah,
What
definitely.
did you think, Rochelle?
Well, you know the saying, when it's nice, do it twice. And this is definitely what we're doing with this topic right now, because a topic like this, you cannot get it all in one go. And so I think us doing this part now, and now today we're going to be speaking more along the lines of the youth and how, you know, it affects them. So I think this is definitely the way to go. And yeah, the feedback was quite good as well. And we got told that this is so daring.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what my lecturer said to me today, actually, and I'm sure you heard it as well. I went into class today, and the first thing that she said was that, where you guys getting them topics from? Oh my God, and the way you're talking. And I was like, well, you know, you have to open up the discussion on a matter that affects, you know, half of our population, our women, and even the men as well, men who feel uncomfortable about it. And my take-home message from our first episode was that not all men know that they are actually hurting women when they make these comments. Not all of them understand really the implications of their actions. And I'm so proud of us that we actually got an opportunity and we used our platform in a positive way to actually inform them of our, you know, just our discomfort with the idea of sexual harassment, or what they might perceive isn't sexual harassment.
Well, you see, I got that aspect as well, and I somewhat bent towards being a bit more sympathetic, but overall my opinion sticks that it really is no excuse. In 2018, there really is no excuse to behave like that. I mean, if something cannot tell you that sort of behavior is less than acceptable, I don't know. I don't know what rock you crawled out from underneath to
and for
think
sure
that
the
way.
men are not coming from Wakanda.
Exactly.
Not at all. So because of that, I don't think they have any excuse for the types of comments, the behaviors, and all of that. But when we look at the soup and what it is we do as ladies on the soup, I think it really is our, well, I don't like the word job, but part of what we should be doing as women is to bring out those topics.
Oh, yeah.
Who's going to talk about it?
Oh, yes.
You know? And we are daring enough and brave enough to talk about it. So when we look at sexual harassment and the fact that you say things to me and do things to me that is going to hurt me, and then I also have the little ones coming up,
Yes.
whether they be
yes,
mine or
yes.
yours or all of ours, we have a purpose to bring them out and really talk about it in ways
Yes.
that people can get, people understand.
And hey, people, it's like we said at the beginning of last episode, season 4. We ain't come out to play, you know. We ain't come out to play.
Yeah,
We ready.
We have many hot topics. I think we were
yeah.
discussing the ideas and the stuff that you were saying, and everybody was contributing. It was really fiery. And I think people are in for, our viewers, you guys are in for a very different season, dynamic season, and we're just taking it up another notch. But funny you said, you know, we're in 2018. We have children, we have the younger generation, and we need to address the issue of sexual harassment from a very early age, because it happens in the schools, it happens in primary, infant schools even.
Infant schools.
So,
It happens in their social settings when they go out.
Yes, it does, it does. So this is a very interesting topic today, and one very dear to my heart. And I just can't wait to just dive in.
And even the point when we look at youth and misogyny, and for those who may not understand what we mean by misogyny, we're talking about the hatred of women by males.
Yes.
Men who hate women, men who mistrust women. And so we can see, well, at least for me, I can speak for me, I could see where our young males are developing that kind of thing, even when they may not see it as hating the female, as mistrusting the female. The attitudes and the comments really speak to that. So I think we really need to shine some light on the fact that our attitudes, our behaviors, both from us as adults and from them as young people to each other, how that plays into the whole misogyny and sexual harassment.
I think we also need to delve into us as you mentioned, we have children. I think we need to delve into the topic of parents and what we can do to ensure that this is nipped in the bud and we don't raise a next generation of misogynists and guys and girls who are into sexual harassment. So but with that said, we'll be right back. Stick around, because we're going to be delving into this topic and really getting into the meat of things. According to our cameraman, we're going to be getting into the jaw of the soup, the bouillon, the Tedco short tooth bagay. So
don't forget the kabuit.
According to him again, the kabuit. So stick
With
around.
no hair in there, no hair at all.
We'll be right back.
The problem starts with finding a suitable spot. It extends to double parking. Offloading zones are ignored, thus inconveniencing commercial activity. Handicapped spots are occupied by drivers who use the quick errand excuse. And of course, there's the constant fear of parking tickets. In an effort to curb these and other parking-related issues, the Castries City Council will be implementing short-term paid parking. $3 an hour can save you $500 in parking tickets. Short-term paid parking, coming soon.
Welcome back to The Soup. We are continuing our conversation on sexual harassment. And a basic definition of what sexual harassment means is the unwanted sexual advances, comments, actions, even violations of one person to another. Now, in our Saint Lucian context, sexual harassment is a growing problem among our youth. For me, I cannot deny that fact. I work with young people, I interact with young people, and I see and hear what they say and what they're subjected to. And for a fact, we know, well, I know that they are going through such problems, even when they do not recognize it for themselves. on set with us is a guy who is no stranger. That is a fact, right? It's about time we stop having you here,
yes.
You're not a sub member.
Never.
Hello.
He's
And he's becoming a sub member.
We're keeping him.
We welcome you, Mr. Bennett Charles, yet again. And again, you're an all-rounder. And because of the fact that you work directly with youth, and when we say youth, we're talking about 15 to 29. Well, actually, legally, they say up to 35.
Yeah,
and you work with these young people in all those age ranges. Sexual harassment and youth. What is your take on that?
Thank you very much. I think one of the most important things is understanding. I think last week, before the last show, we spoke about the issue of discretion, and Jade pointed out to that. But I think being able to use discretion means that you need to know. There need to be knowledge. And I think, like Jade said, a lot of times I think persons don't even understand what they're doing. And so you find that when you're raised in a culture where it's okay to sit and it's okay to tell your girl or your friend, you know, she looking good in that dress, or, you know, I like the size of that jeans, or, you know, all those sort of little things that we say as young men, or even as young people say to each other, then it's rather difficult to say, what am I doing? Is it wrong? Because you're coming from a place of I think, ignorance. And yes, I'm hearing the comments about, oh, in the 21st century and, you know, the internet and social media. But,
well,
you know,
learn somewhere.
But
and
the
for
fact
a lot
is
of
that,
that's where it's coming from.
Yeah. The fact is that a lot of us, when we talk about accessing information, when these young people access information, it's not about how to speak better to your girlfriend or your partner. It's not about how not to be sexy. It's not about how not to be prejudiced. It's about actually how to do what to do to get that girl to that girl's pants or into her panty, whatever. And so it's very difficult, I believe, for young people. And I'm hoping that we could get some views from other young persons how to meander that. It is hard. And I mean, if you speak to a lot of young women in terms of that work that we do, the things they go through on a daily basis. Imagine you're an A-level girl, you know, you just entered A-level, you walk in the bus stop, or you're entering, and you know sometimes the senior students look out for the younger girls. And the comments you would get about, you know, how that A-level uniform look on you now, you know, because at convent you couldn't wear pants, and now you can wear A-level pants, and now I can really see how you look in that pants.
Wow.
You know, a lot of those things. And for them, for some, even for the young girls, it's difficult to deal with it. How do you manage that? Because for some young women, see, this is a compliment because you tell me how my butt looks in the pants. Finally, somebody tells me that. Because sometimes I believe they don't even understand what's happening. So I think it's ignorance on both parts, both from the person who's giving it sometimes, and sometimes they know what they're doing. And I think sometimes even the person receiving it doesn't even know how to measure that and say, what the hell is going on, or have I been violated in one way or the other?
And even if you may not perceive it as sexual harassment, you may think it's a compliment.
Right.
Yeah. So we have those issues too, where you are being harassed, but as the receiver, you don't know.
Yes.
Now we're talking a lot about the girls, but the boys get harassed too.
Yes,
we cannot forget that. Viewers, your sons, your daughters, your nieces, your nephews, your granddaughter, your godchild, they are being harassed. And simple instances. For example, an 8-year-old boy is in the carnival band, and he's on the road and TikTok and doing this kind of thing on the road, like, woo, I'm feeling myself. And he's there on the road doing his thing. There you have a 13-year-old girl all of a sudden just jumping behind him and start to, you know, on his behind. And I'm talking about something that I saw. So you look back like, and he's like very uncomfortable, like, what now? Who are you? I don't know you. Why are you? You know? And Others filming and whatnot, and we're laughing and we're giggling and thinking, well, that is, you know.
Yes.
Now, I'm not saying that she has any sexual intentions.
Yes, yeah.
But it's those kinds of things that are examples or perfect examples of how our young people behave, what it can mean, and how we need to educate, sensitize them on those issues that can lead to something more.
I think that there is a double standard to some respect when it comes to men and young boys. I think that as a society, many people believe that men are supposed to just deal with it. Or if you do not accept that compliment, if you do not react sexually, to a woman grabbing your butt or rubbing the oil on the chest, as we saw on NBC, you know, you're seen as a wimp. You're not seen to be
or
manly.
from the other persuasion.
And I find that these days, I'm speaking about, like, gosh, I worked at HS for a while, and I would have to pass in front of, through the campus every single day. And the girls are aggressive. The girls are really aggressive. The girls would grab the guys, they would hold them by the uniform, draw them close, and they do a lot of the talking and the actions, and you know, that chivalrous nature that, you know, we would be accustomed to, that's gone out the window. Gone out the window. And ladies are just so into it right now. Some.
You're talking about A-level. I still see it on the streets, secondary school students and stuff like that. Heck, I shouldn't mention any school names, but primary schools, you see it happening in primary schools. My daughter has been to 2 different primary schools, and I saw it happening in the different primary schools where the boys and girls used to interact, and the girls used to be the ones going after the boys and stuff like that. So it happens. But there's one thing I did mention earlier on, and that's the parental part, where what can we as parents do to make sure that we don't raise another generation of to perpetuate that kind of behavior. So what do you think?
Definitely. Well, I think for a lot has to do with the education, making the child understand those things. But even important for me, not even just parenting, but we spoke about the issue about the school and the situations in the schools. I am not too aware of the education policy and the issue of sexual harassment. I do know that in the criminal code it is an offense, and then the Equal Opportunity Employment Act, it can be an offense. However, for the Education Act, I'm not too sure where that exists. I believe that, for example, if you have a child who is, for example, an intern at a place, you know, and this child is sexually harassed, the school should be in a position, if this child reports this sexual harassment, to be able to deal with the situation. Or if a child is sexually harassed on campus by another student, that the school should be able to deal with it. I don't know what the code speaks about that within the school policy, but again, that would also assist parents to be able to bring it forward and say, okay, my child is experiencing this, how can the school deal with this situation? But I think as parents, we play an important role, and I mean, during the week we were looking at the video, and it really highlighted a few things that if we as parents raise our boys to treat the partners, the women correctly, and in the same way we raise our girls to treat boys respectfully, I think we start to see the changes in that. But I don't think we're doing that. Too often we're raising boys to be this misogynistic way, to be this macho kind of, and we're raising our girls to be, you know, a bit more take what the man is telling you kind of thing. But also our girls are becoming more and more aggressive and assertive. The millennials now, I mean, my daughter is 15 and I don't know how she's going to turn out, but they're becoming a lot more aggressive compared to a child who was born maybe about 20 or 25 years ago.
Yes.
And some of those actions can lead to or go beyond the sexual harassment and become sexual assault, sexual abuse. I was told of an example of a Form 4 male who was consistently and regularly harassed by a fellow female student. And behind him and heckling and tickling and joking, according to our Saint Lucians. And, oh, you soft, and you know why you ain't doing nothing, and blah, blah, blah. To the point where one day he jumped in the bathroom. Well, you say, I can't do it, you know, I'm not man enough. Well, let me show you. And he was suspended. What and why would something even get to that point? What would make a young lady be that kind of way to another person? We're told that girls are sugar and spice and everything nice, and that you must be seen and not heard. I don't think that's a thing anymore when you look at our young females, our young males in society. Now, boys are made of snails and tails and puppy tails and all of those other little things. And unlike us, where we're not sweet and candy no more, the guys are really puppy tails and snails, because the way they get on with you, it's downright nasty. We need to be straight about that. It's downright nasty. Now, in his case, can you blame him? Should we blame him? Should he have been suspended? Was the whole thing looked at in its entirety? I mean, it's a fact that that happens.
Yeah,
I think that he should have been suspended. No doubt about that, because he inflicted.
In the end, he did assault, right?
Yes, he assaulted the girl. So
it's a simple matter of you can take a horse to water, but you can't get it to drink. But in this case, you took it to the water and it drank.
Because the question is, did he report the issue?
But that is the thing. I think, again, even the issue of sexual harassment within the schools, we know it happens, and I think what Alison pointed out, that, you know, what are the avenues to report sexual harassment? It's seen as something that is serious. I mean, okay, a girl troubling that kind of thing. You say, boy, what kind of little papi show vibe thing you on? You know, are there serious avenues? Do we see that as something serious compared to a sexual assault? Alison mentioned that, you know, the sexual harassment may lead to the sexual assault. Sadly, in this case, it did. But also, I believe that there should be some intervention with this young lady, you know, in understanding what she's done and how she's placed maybe a child who may have seen it as bullying, whatever, and his way of retaliating was proving that I could do something to you the same way you're doing it to me. So clearly he should have been suspended. But I also believe that the intervention was not just this part, but needed to be something more.
Let me make an interjection there. Sorry, Michelle. My daughter attends primary school, and one day she came home and she said to me, "Mommy, so-and-so hit me in my back." I have taught my daughter self-defense. So needless to say, she hit the boy back. So then I said to her, "But tell me about it. What has been going on? Why did this happen?" She said to me, "Well, he's always trying to tickle me, and I saw him tickling some girls, and I pushed him off the girls, and then he punched her." So obviously, next morning, bright and early, I was in the boys' classroom. I said to the teacher, and the teacher said to me, "Oh, you know the little children?" I said, no. He needs to apologize first and foremost. And she made him apologize, and they had that little explanation and everything. And then she thought that that was it. I said, "I'm not done. I want to see his parents. I want to see his parents. I will be back here tomorrow, and I want to have a discussion." And it's not an argument. You don't have to get all leery about it, but you do have to have the discussion. And that little boy, he doesn't tickle girls anymore. He doesn't touch them when they do not want to be touched at all. He doesn't touch them at all.
I must say one thing. I don't know if the viewers would have noticed it, but like something has come over me, and I am right now like extremely overwhelmed with emotion. It was something that Bennett mentioned with regards to, you know, how the schools are treating it and whatnot. Because this is something I've never spoken about publicly. I mean, I've only ever mentioned it to my nearest and dearest. But this problem with the schools and how they handle this issue, it is beyond worrying. Oh my God, I'm shaking. I feel knots in my stomach. I'm even feeling slightly nauseous. But yeah, this is my truth. Like I mentioned earlier, my daughter, she's been to 2 different primary schools. And the reason why she had to move schools is because she was involved in an incident involving sexual harassment. And she was only in grade K at 5 years old. And the person who did this, it wasn't another child, but the perpetrator is still at the school to this day. And I found out about it 3 years later, when she finally had the courage to speak out to one of her friends, who then told another friend, who then came and told me. And immediately I took her out of the school the same day, but then the next morning I went to the school to report the incident, and the members of the school, they immediately went into defense mode and accused her of lying, and saying that it's more than likely that she's lying because, you know, no one else has reported anything of that nature. So with seeing how this was handled, seeing how this is still being handled, because like I said, this person is still there. I still see him walking around. It's extremely worrying for me. And I think that this is a matter that goes a lot deeper, because it's not just my daughter, it's not just her school, but I am 1,000,000% certain that this goes on in other schools where these things are reported and nothing is being done.
And that's the truth. I'm so sorry to hear that. But we need to discuss what we need to do to stop sexual harassment at school. And this is the topic for the next segment. And I what a better way to start it. I mean, you can always get positives out of a negative situation, and maybe that positive is you speaking out right now. And I don't think that there's ever a time to stop talking about it. And whenever a child is sexually assaulted, we need to tackle it head on.
Definitely.
So kudos to you on that. But
and we do know that there are other parents who are going through it right now with their children. So with that, viewers, we give you some time to think about it, and we will be back.
When persons with TB sneeze or cough, healthy persons nearby breathe in the droplets and the bacteria can lodge in their lungs. People with weakened immune systems such as HIV/AIDS, alcohol and drug users, smokers, children, and the elderly are most susceptible. Persons with a cough should take precautions when in contact with persons in public places. Cover your mouth when sneezing and coughing. Visit your doctor or health center. You must complete your treatment. TB can be cured even with HIV. Be responsible. Help stop the spread of TB and HIV. Protect yourself and others.
Welcome back to The Soup, and welcome back to this very, very important discussion. As you heard, this topic is one that is very close to all our hearts here on the cast of The Soup. But we do want to distinguish the difference between sexual harassment, which is the topic that we're discussing today, and sexual abuse. We do want to speak and focus on the topic of sexual harassment. Particularly today, we're discussing what to do to stop sexual harassment in schools. So we are going to give you the tools that you need. We are going to walk you through it. We are going to share our experiences, share our knowledge, and we are going to hopefully leave something with you today that you can utilize in your children's schools, places that you work, if you have to integrate with people of society, young people in particular. We have a very prolific young man here with us today. His name is Ajani Lebon. He's the second vice president of the National Youth Council. I've known Ajani for a very long time. He's done a lot of youth work and never shy to speak his mind. And I'm sure that he will he does have a lot to say today on this particular matter. Ajani, good day.
Hi, good afternoon. It's such a pleasure to be on the panel today. I think the discussion has really been lively, and I look forward to sharing some of my experiences as it pertains to sexual harassment in school and as an individual as well.
Excellent. We know that schools must stop condoning adolescent behavior, as they so put it. Like I referred to earlier, you know, a girl hits a guy or guy hits a girl, a child in the school, and they say, oh, they're just children, leave them, ha ha ha. And it's not a ha ha moment. It's actually, you know, an early onset of sexual harassment. It is sexual harassment. I know as a young person, you went through the school system here. What was your experience of this subject matter within the educational institutions on the island?
All right, well, I actually had the privilege of going through the school system as part of a very, how do you say it, outgoing group of friends, right? We were always hanging out under the calabash tree as before comprehensive school. We also had the privilege of probably being part of many social activities. So I had first-hand experience of the interactions between males and females at the secondary school level. I think to a great extent there is a lack of education on the part of probably our education system, from the homes and in the communities, on what entails sexual harassment. Coming from a young person, I know for sure that we do not understand exactly what is sexual harassment. And even more, the culture that we have grown in, it has sort of made it very conducive for us to be comfortable doing these things and not actually understanding what are the effects that it would have on a young woman. So I think in my groupings, we did end up in situations where we probably had to understand, all right, is this going too far? Or having to peg back and say that we should be able to draw boundaries between how we interact with young women and what is understandable and what is probably not understandable as in our position as young males in society.
Can you share any specific
examples
to what you mean? Because a person listening, for example, our viewer, he's been through this, is what the youth do. But what specifically, in your experience, speaks to sexual harassment?
All right, so as some people may know if they see me on the set, I grew up in the Adventist church, and I was a very introverted individual. So I was not that one to walk up to a young lady that I sort of liked and say, hey, you know, I'm very interested in getting to know you and that kind of thing. So being in the group of friends that I was sort of pushed to certain boundaries to say that, is this something that I should engage in? And it made me question myself, it made me question my identity as a young male. Am I strong enough? Am I actually a male in the Saint Lucian context? Do I have that tendency to probably side with young women in terms of supporting some of the things that they go through? And I was sort of, it was pushing me to a stage where I had to understand that I probably need to be open-minded as to my approach to young women. And it took me to a point where I was probably in the situation where a young woman was very aggressive and demanding as to what she wanted from me, and I was not ready to give off that part of myself. And it made me look very timid, and my friends would have joked me about it. They would have been like, hey, you're at this level and you're not doing this yet. And you know, they would actually turn to me and make me feel less of a person. And these are the things that I speak about. The fact that young males today are pushed beyond the boundaries because of the traditional context of what we think a young male should be. And it does sort of affect the way that they deal with young women, and they don't understand the implications to this as well.
Yeah, because they're looking at it from a personal point of view. Nobody wants to feel less than. Nobody wants to feel, or nobody likes the effects of bullying.
Yeah.
And when you have, especially, well, it works both ways, male or female, but when you have a fellow teenager like you telling you things that are hurting, it's like a prick each time. And with each one, it's deeper, and it's, oh gosh, you either completely break down or you do exactly what they want you to do, even when you know you're not ready. Our young people are dealing with these issues. So what then came out of your situation?
Well, I think it pushed me to the point where I had to understand myself as a person. And this is why when I go to schools to speak, my main message is about identity, understanding who you are as an individual. If you do not set that identity, then you won't be able to know where your boundaries are. And for me, it was about understanding how can I portray in myself that I am respectful of my own self and respectful of others. It took me to the point where I also understood how to deal with young women. And I grew up in a home where respect for people was a main principle. Knowing how to respect young ladies, knowing how to deal with young ladies. And I used my experiences in the school environment to help mold me as a person. So even today, I still get, because of the work I do, and I'll be upfront about it, because of the work I do, I still get a lot of inboxes, messages in my DMs, you know, about, hey, you're doing this and that. I even go to the point where a young lady wanted me to come into this environment where I'll be vulnerable. And I said, no, you know, I cannot subject myself to these things. And there is a double standard. Because if I were to use the work that I do as sort of a platform to prey on young women, then it will probably be seen among the young populace, the male populace, as, hey, you're a macho guy, you're doing this and that. But then the young ladies coming to a young guy with these proposals is not seen that seriously.
So and he calls it proposals, you know. Yeah, right. No, it's not a proposal when the young girls approach you, because when they were telling you whatever, you did not feel like it was a proposal. I know you're trying to use nice words here, you know, but it really wasn't a proposal. You know, they're aggressive. They're
indecent
downright. Yes. Then we could use that.
So, but Johnny, with this, knowing this and your experiences and your platform, how do you impact the thoughts, the minds, the hearts, the lives of young men like yourself? how do you encourage them to speak positivity into the lives of women rather than, you know, all this kind of déclassé nonsense that's going on?
All right, so a lot of the work that I'm looking to do, even beyond just the work that I do with students, is to build the male conscience to the point where we are more comfortable about ourselves, we are more understandable as to who we are as males. And if we do not understand this, then we will be probably moving around as, in, you know, with the whims and fancies. So the work that I want to continue doing is working with young males so that they would be able to understand who are we, right? Who is a male, who are you as a young guy? And in the school environment, you find that young males are they are placed in an environment where, because of the double standards, right? A young guy promoting or probably going to administration and saying that, hey, a young lady was harassing me or whatever. It will not be seen as a big deal. You will probably be looked down as that kind of person. So I think the work that I want to do is to get guys to become comfortable in saying that I am not going to stand for this and I'm not going to subject myself to these kind of things. But to another extent, what I really want to begin pushing for the National Youth Council and for other NGOs that I work with is to get the Ministry of Education to take seriously the issue of sexual harassment between administration and students. This is a major issue, and I hope that during the discussion it is brought up. There is a lot of sexual harassment going on between administration and students, and I think it's gotten to a point where it's been swept under the rug, and we need to expose it so that we can address it.
But that was actually leading to the next question that I wanted to ask you. What steps do you think administrations can take, like schools and whatnot? Because like I mentioned, even though my situation is bordering, it's sexual abuse, but one can easily see how, although there are different situations, there is a clear and distinct bridge where sexual harassment can easily cross over into sexual abuse if it's not taken care of at an opportune time, or like at all. So what do you think? Where do you think schools can step in, and what do you think they can do to fight this issue, basically?
Especially seeing as you went through it yourself.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, what could they have done to help you and help the youth now?
Yeah.
So education is important, and we do not have enough safe spaces within the school environment where guys and girls could speak about these issues among themselves and to administration. There is also the major issue of the lack of trust with counselors within the school system. You do have the lack of confidentiality that is going on. So I think creating safe spaces where it will be easier for males to speak about these issues. A guy would be free to speak about issues affecting him to another guy. So we need to create those pair bonding areas or these systems within the schools where students could speak to students on various issues. And we've been trying to use the Students' Council as a driving mechanism behind these things, but it's been a bit of a challenge getting administration to conform to a lot of these things.
Yeah.
So building these systems in the school, support systems for young males, even in the community system, if you have a situation where with the different clubs in the schools, they could work in tandem with community groups so that they could be able to enforce these systems. I think that would be important, because you do have a situation where in schools in the South where you find a high majority of the students live within the communities. The very same issues that translate into the schools are the same issues that persist in the communities.
That's a very good
So if we have that cohesion going on, I think that would be very, very needful as well.
And I think that there need to be clear consequences for people who do this. I don't even know how to explain it any further. You know that it's wrong. You have the authority, yet you are sexually harassing a student or your peer, or, you know, say for example, somebody in an organization, an NGO, and then you have young, impressionable people coming in, young men and young women, and this is what they're subjected to. And this wreaks havoc on a young person's self-confidence and their self-esteem. And it just follows you through into your adulthood obviously we all have experiences of it from school up until probably this morning. If I go to my Facebook messages, I can see, all the messages that I've gotten. So even on social media with young people, Instagram is the in thing now. It's about, showing off your body and showing off. And I will never say to a young woman, don't dress the way you want to dress. You dress how you want to dress. And that's
your body after all.
That's your body. You do what you want with your body. That is not an open invitation to any young man or young woman coming into this young man's body just because he's got gains at the gym or whatever to say, hey, boo, this, that, and the other. No, that's sexual harassment. And if it happens in the school setting, there need to be consistent consequences for people's actions. And too many times our parents, our teachers, our principals, our schools, the administrators, they fail the young people. And that is what angers me. It really does anger me, because an apology is not enough. An apology does not mean that his behavior is going to change. You understand? Right. It irks me.
What happens in a school system, Saint Lucians is a very small place, tightly knit communities. What happens in a school system where the head of the school is related to a member of the faculty? Or
another big issue.
And he is known, or she is known, to be doing these things within the school system. You need to have a system where there is more transparency. You need to have a system where persons are accountable to other persons beyond just the school environment. Right. And I think, yes, the consequences are very true, and we need to be able to have these boundaries set.
And one thing I think we have not really looked at, but also is a fact, we've been looking at sexual harassment, females to males, males to females. We have not touched on the fact that males who harass males and females who harass females.
Like, look at that incident in the comprehensive school, I think it was, where was it? No, actually, scratch comprehensive school, because I'm not 100% sure, but I know for a fact that one of the secondary schools, there was an incident where one of the students, a female student, was attacked by another female student.
Sexually? In terms of, okay.
Yeah, and God knows how long that was going on for. But yeah, it happens.
And we also had this other case that was a little while ago of the coach at a primary school, a male coach who was harassing his male.
I think
yes.
Okay. Yeah.
And if we're all aware of the story, we know what school we're talking about. Yeah. And a situation that was not dealt with sufficiently, was not dealt with in a way that those who were affected, those who got these things happening to them, felt or got closure, for want of a better word. So at the end of the day, we have harassment coming from all segments, and teachers, parents. Don't be afraid to talk about sexual harassment among the youth. Parents, allow your child a safe space in your home to come and talk to you about what happened. Did you ever tell your parents what was happening to you at school? So you see, we don't have that happening, where your children are able to come talk to you. Teachers, if your student comes to tell you that this particular teacher wants me to do this for a grade, or will fail me because, or the security this, or so forth, take it on, listen, and don't ignore. Oh, no, he's my cousin, he's my friend, he's my relative, so no. So we need to be able to take on the student when they're doing these things, write it down, get to the authorities, do the referrals, because according to the law, there's only so much that they can do. You have to report. Do that, and we can get the ball rolling.
But there's, just before we finish, there's something that we need to give them examples of sexual harassment.
But I think we need to do that after we return from break, because there's enough that they really need to understand.
Okay, sure.
So after we return, people, sit tight, because we have some specific examples for you.
In an effort to reduce congestion within the nation's capital, the Castries Constituency Council will be implementing short-term paid parking in a phased approach. 10 terminals will be installed on the following streets: Bridge, Brogley, Urban, Jean-Baptiste, Miku, Labrie, Pinier, High Street, and in the William Peter Boulevard. Short-term paid parking will run from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday to Saturday. To find out more, log on to the Castries Constituency Council's Facebook page. $3 an hour could save you $500 in parking tickets. Short-term paid parking coming soon.
Welcome back to The Soup. You are joining us in our discussion on sexual harassment. Now, before the break, we spoke about the fact that there is not enough redress for our students, for our youth. It is very important, people, to document, write it down, so that if the law has to come into place, and they should, you have your records right there to share. Your words are not enough. You need to write it down. Teachers, parents, security, whoever you are, document. And how are you even aware that your child is being harassed? And you, as a young viewer watching, how do you know? So let's look at some examples. And Jade, you had some of them.
Yes, we definitely do. There are several examples of sexual harassment, and some of them you may be aware of, or you definitely are aware of. Some of them are a little bit more peculiar. For example, sexual graffiti. Taken to the walls,
as
and
you
to
would see in the bathrooms.
We had that discussion, and writing obscene things about other persons. That is definitely an example of sexual harassment. Sexual touching, sexual gestures, dirty jokes, all those kind of jokes. And you say, I just kicks in off with you. It's not a joke. It is sexual harassment. Spreading rumors about other students' sexual activity. That is something that's personal to a young man or a young woman. It's not for public discussion. It's not up for public discussion. Touching oneself in a sexual fashion in front of others. I'm not sure how that happens between, how often it happens, or how prevalent it is between two young people. But I know of examples through work where this has occurred between an adult and a young person in a school. And it's really troubling. Talking about one's own sexual activities in front of others. And this is one of the peculiar ones, because you would want to engage in discussions as young people and say, I do that already. Or the girls would say, we did this, and
because you have to prove your sexual prowess.
Yes, but that is another form of sexual harassment, because I may not want to hear this. I may not be exposed to this. I don't want to be exposed to it. And you are making me uncomfortable. So it's about thinking about other people's feelings. You always have to take other people's feelings into account. When you speak, when you act, the way you engage with others. Sexual comments about your body as well. Pushing up yourself on somebody, so to speak. That could make people really uncomfortable. Sexual advances, propositions, and suggestions. As Ajani mentioned earlier, he mentioned an example where a girl slid into his DM, which is a local palace, slid into his DM and asked him to meet her in a situation where he would have been vulnerable. And good for him, he could speak up and he could say, you know what, I wouldn't be comfortable with that, so no, I'm not going to meet you.
But not many of our young people are, and they need that power.
Yes.
I think other situations that we need to look at when we speak about our young people and how they can be harassed, we're talking about another young person continually asking him or her to go out when they've already told you, no, I don't want to, but you're on their backs. Also, when you're asking for requests that are not wanted, whether it be a social activity or a sexual activity, and you're on their backs. Inappropriate touching. You always want to grab a girl's butt, or the girl want to grab the boy's butt, or you want to rub the, muscles, woo, sleek. All those kinds of things. Sexual harassment. When you are spreading rumors, you are spreading lies. You know for a fact you did not sleep with that girl. You know for a fact that that boy did not do whatever behind in the bathroom, in the movie house, in the back row, and whatnot. But you're spreading that rumor that they did. Your intention is malicious, but your intention is also sexual. These are harassment situations. Parents, teachers, young people. We really need to be aware. We really need to know what it is so we can stop it and not see that kind of behavior continue. Yeah. No more excuses. Stop it now.
Okay, so with me, we reached a part where I'm excited, where we get to speak about what we took away from today's show. And yeah, I think one of the issues we did not even get to mention was the social aspect. And when I think about that same social aspect, the one conclusion I cannot help falling to is that our young people are screwed. When it comes to sexual harassment, they really are screwed, because I mean, they can't escape it. It's coming from every single aspect. They get it from home, they get it from schools, they get it from their friends, they get it from
the general public.
From general public, bus drivers.
Yeah.
Oh, Lord, don't ask for that one.
They even get it from the places that are higher up. You touched upon that, and you know, anyone who knows me, I'm sorry, I hope I don't get in trouble for this, but anyone who knows me, they know I'm a straight shooter. Let's address the elephant in the room. I mean, look at that topic, that alleged incident involving one of our ministers and a student. You know, this is a major topic that if it happened anywhere else in the world, it would have been dealt with completely differently. You know,
and it's all those messages,
because you have all these allegations from ministers in other countries, simple allegations, and these people either resign immediately or are fired.
But
then
something.
in Saint Lucia, we have this situation, and then we have alleged evidence, and we all know.
And even the appearance that something is being done. You're not seeing, you're not hearing anything. What does that tell a young person?
You know?
Now you may say that she's at fault. We're putting that on one side. What about the other side of it? It's all one-sided. What are you telling your young people?
You know, the blame was that, you know, she was blackmailing and whatnot. But how about if the incident never took place in the first place? You know, she wouldn't have a reason to blackmail anyone. But
we have to look at it holistically at the end of the day, and we cannot be less in saying that our parents and our teachers, our administrators, and our policymakers and legislators have a role to play in reducing this to the level where students, when it happens, youth, when it happens, know what they can do and where they can go.
My takeaway message from today was actually from Ajani, when he said that in all his endeavors, when he goes to schools and he speaks to young people, we need you to know who you are, know yourself, know your rights. Understand that if you take a stance against something that is wrong, you are not wrong. You are empowered, you are important, and you are special. Do not allow anybody to hurt you in any sort of way, particularly in this topic that we're discussing, because it's so important. It happened to me, and more than that. And I can tell you, it will do you so much good in years to come if you tackle the issue head on. Exactly. That's my message.
Excellent. Well, we've reached the end of a major topic.
Like that, time flies.
A hard-pounding one.
Can we get a part 3?
Not enough time. But with that said, I guess I would like to reach out and thank all our sponsors. First and foremost, I'd like to thank Lucky Cosmetics for providing us with the fabulous makeup that our other person to thank, Ali, our makeup artist. You know, they work in tandem.
I mean, who can make me look as good as this?
You need to check her out on Instagram. What's her? Yes.
Island Empress Ali.
Yes.
Yeah, you need to check her out. Oh, she bad. We also need to thank Zenith Williams, who is our set designer. See how cute our set looks today. Yes. And guys, don't forget, you can get us on social media. You can find us on Facebook at _soup. You can find us on Instagram at The Soup Saint Lucia. You can also find us on YouTube at The Soup SLU. Sorry, I made a mistake. Sorry. Instagram is _soup SLU, and on YouTube is the soup SLU. Now, don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button so you can find out everything about us. And also, one more shout out, Michael Blanchard. You're always watching and you're always talking to me and giving me your suggestions and whatnot. So keep watching. Thanks for watching, and I hope you continue to spread the message.
And of course, our camera and crew always, you know, keeping us on point. We want to thank them for that.
Definitely.
Keeping us happy.
Yes.
So, of course, until the next episode, keep it locked.